Yes, sir.
I call the Kitty Hawk Town Council to order this Monday, November 4th, 2019. It's 5 p.m. Would you join us for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Do I hear an approval, a motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, or are none. Presentations, North Beach Library.
First on the agenda.
Yes, sir. I told you I'd put you there.
Hey, tell me, get me in there. Mr. Mayor, council members, my name's Mike Fletcher. I'm the chairman of the Library Committee. We were chartered by the Southern Shores Council to investigate the possibility of having a library branch on the 158 corridor, which is the only actually really viable locations that we did. So we've done a number of things to date. We started roughly in the summertime. We started with the discovery phase. We had Mr. Wilk, who is the head of the library system around in Dare County. Give us a briefing on all the services and options of what libraries do. We also did a survey, which is what I'm mainly going to talk about tonight. I also mentioned that we are after we did the site discovery phase, we have narrowed it down to one site, more or less. We did look at like 4 or 5 different possibilities, but there's one site that we're working some numbers up on. We're not quite ready to present those yet because we're still working on it. Once we get that, which will hopefully be next month, I'll be able to present essentially a proposal. So the survey, which took place in the month of October, ran the entire month, had 407 respondents. This is from the entire area, basically Dare County, although as I will show with the data, bring up the, yep. Okay, I guess that's good enough. Lost my train of thought there. Again, there was 407 respondents. It was done on SurveyMonkey, and it was, again, all the respondents were from Dare County. These kinds of voluntary surveys from a statistical standpoint. They're not randomized, they're not representative necessarily. They give you essentially data of people who chose to respond. So that's kind of a proviso in regards to these kinds of surveys. So the first question, we had like 14 questions. And the first question, a very simple question, are you interested in having a library branch? And almost, I guess 79, almost 80% of the people said yes they do, which I guess for people who propose libraries, that's good news. As we'll see here in a little bit, 60% of the respondents were from Southern Shores of the 400. So again, people who are most affected or perceive themselves to be most affected by whatever the survey is being asked about tend to be the people most likely to respond. So clearly Southern Shore had like 60% of the respondents. Again, there's lots of data here, which I think you'll all be given, also be put up on the various town websites for people to review. Again, this is simply a chunk of data for people to consider, do we want this or not? Again, there's lots of questions. The second one, what kind of services will it provide? And here's some data on that. Again, people very concerned about quality of life, help making additional visits to the library possible and so forth. And again, respondents were rather positive in regards to, would they use the library more often if there was such a thing? Again, it's about 75% said yes. And again, this is the services. Again, you can look at this in more detail later if you'd like. But again, the main takeaway here is that people like to browse and check out. That's why one of the main reasons they would use the library. There's also other ones, the children's reading rooms and meeting rooms and so forth. Again, this question here, sorry if I went by that too quickly. Simply ranking, what services you want to provide. Again, I'd let you review that in detail. I'm not going to go into, there's quite a bit of data here, so I don't want to go into all the details here tonight. A couple more things I want to talk about here. Okay, this is simply library. Would you use the library? Would you begin using it? If you don't use it, would you begin using it? Again, a fair amount of NAs, of course, people who already have library cards, but people who don't, they would answer that. Again, predominantly yes. I'll cover this here briefly with another kind of a pie chart. We had like 120 separate comments. There's a separate document. If you want to actually review them all, we'll provide those. I do have a summary pie chart, which I'll talk about here in a couple seconds. Again, this is just population data about who responded to the survey. Who has library cards and who doesn't. Again, just data points. And not surprisingly, almost all the respondents use the library here in a library in Gilderville Hills. Here's some interesting data. I mean, this is actually kind of interesting as far as distance from that. I mean, my personal residence is more than 10 miles from the library because I live in fairly northerly and southern shores. Usage data, again, how many times do I visit the library? Quite a few. I was actually surprised a lot of people do visit the library rather frequently, so about a quarter of the people. Let me bring up the analysis of the specific comments. This is not quite as positive as the other data was. Again, mostly positive comments. There were certain different categories of comments, and just to mention a few. Also, many responses had multiple issues in them, had to be counted more than once. So on the pros, overwhelmingly people said, yeah, would I add to the convenience of using the library, and also, of course, quality of life. People enjoy having a library in the vicinity to do a variety of things that, use the variety of services that the libraries use. In the neutral, again, people think, how much it's going to cost. That's always a question. Regarding, are there going to be sufficient services? In the cons area, clearly, again, fiscal impact. How much is it going to cost? Some people considered it, well, it's a little redundant. There's already libraries in the area. Also, there was a small number of people who were, what's called zero sum, which is, if they put in a library here, we'll lose funds on our library, they'll take those funds and put it to the new library. So, there was a zero sum kind of thinking. So that pretty much summarizes all the data from the survey. We're going to be, again, hopefully next month, once we get the site, essentially a site proposal with some numbers, we'll be presenting those too, which is, how much it's going to cost, how much to renovate the space and so forth. Do you have any questions?
Just for the knowledge of council and the people that will be watching this later, any library extension would be a part of the Albemarle library system.
Right.
that we all come under, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So the big question is, would this be additional money to put into the system, or would it be, as you said, zero sum, where maybe it detracts from what we already have?
Well, that's not for me to decide. That's for Dare County for the most part.
I
to
understand,
decide.
but everybody needs to understand that
Right.
those two options exist. That it may be something new and added to, or it may be something that takes from what exists now. Money-wise, you haven't presented this yet, of course, because you don't have costs and those sort of things. So you'll have to go to the county in order to start that process and see where the county goes with it. What we, this council, and all the other councils too, but especially this council, need to know from the public that'll be watching this later, we need to know, would you be willing for the town to chip in money to put something like this up in the Southern Shores area? In other words, another or a partial library. We need to know if you think it's redundant or something that's worthwhile to do in addition to what is already existing. Council needs to know this because, after all, it's your money, and we want to make sure we get feedback from you. So you can do that by way of emails, calling town staff, emailing us individually. You have our email address for the town, so we want to hear from the public.
Oh, yeah, one more comment. I mean, I'm not only speaking here, I'm speaking in Southern Shores and also Duck. So again, the support of the local councils, in addition to the support, the people, the people is what we're working towards. So we get a consensus. So when we do work with the county to come forward with a proposal, we have some back. And again, people have, again, we don't have any numbers, but there's various proposals on how to get funding, and maybe the towns can chip in, maybe we can get grants from charities and so forth. I mean, all those things are being looked at. And that, again, is Dare County's decision how or if they want to proceed.
Right.
Any other questions?
Council? Anybody?
No questions.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. You're doing Southern Shores tomorrow and then Duck?
Wednesday, because tomorrow's election day.
Oh, okay.
And Duck next month, the first meeting, and I think it's December.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you. All right. Thanks, Mike. Okay, I think we have an audit report. Teresa? We only accept good news.
Well, then it's our lucky night. So I'm here tonight to present the results of your June 30th, 2019 independent audit for the town. The town has received an unmodified opinion on its financial statements, which is the best opinion you can receive. You'll find that on pages 1 and 2 of the audit. Also, there are no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies that have been noted in the financial statements, and you'll find that in the internal control report on pages 58 and 59 of the audit report. So, first 2 pages and the last 2 pages have the good news. Just a couple of highlights tonight. I'm not going to go through all of the details in the budget, and certainly if you have any questions after I leave tonight, I'm happy to answer those for you. If you want to give me a call or just pass those through Andy or Liliana. But after your budgeted transfers to your capital reserve funds, revenues exceeded expenses in the general fund by a little over $1,034,000. This was largely due to revenues that came in over budget projections and expenses that came in under budget projections. Sales tax, occupancy tax, and land transfer taxes were slightly less last year due to a decrease in your proportionate share of these revenues based on tax levies of neighboring towns. Investment income showed a strong increase last year due to higher investment earning rates and larger balances that were invested. The town's unassigned fund balance increased a little over $1,227,000, and that's due to the revenues over expenses that I was just telling you about. The town has an emergency fund balance policy that says that you'll retain at least $3.5 million in that unassigned fund balance. And so after you subtract that out, it still leaves a remaining unassigned fund balance of $4,284,919. And you'll find the details of that fund balance on page 41 of your audit report. The town's tax rate for the audit year was the same as the prior year, 34 cents. As you know, 4 cents of that is restricted for beach nourishment, that's townwide. And then there's a 12-cent municipal service district tax that's also designated for beach nourishment. So all of that money goes into the beach nourishment fund. You pay your beach nourishment debt and expenses out of that. And you've got $2,136,795 in your beach nourishment fund at June 30th of 2019. Additionally, the town had reserves for future capital purchases of $609,880. And that's where you're taking a little bit of money each year, putting it into a capital reserve fund for future capital purchases. The town's tax base increased about 1.15% last year, and the overall tax collection rate was 99.35%, which is a really good tax collection rate. The town does not have any what we call traditional debt. Excuse me, you do have some traditional debt on, you've got 3 years left on your beach nourishment debt. In addition to that, you have 2 unfunded liabilities, and that's what we consider not really traditional debt, like your beach nourishment debt. One of those is the law enforcement officer special separation allowance pension fund. That has a liability of a little over $725,000 at June 30th of 19. And the second one is what we call your OPEB debt, which is your other post-employment benefit debt, which is for retiree health insurance. That's $1,619,688 at June 30th, 2019. I know the town has made a conscious decision not to fund those. We've talked about those, pretty much every year since the standards came in a few years ago. Just a reminder that it's a reporting standard, not a funding standard, so there's not a requirement that those liabilities be funded. But for you to actually show a reduction of the liabilities in your financial statements, that money has to be set aside in a separate trust fund. That would have to be set up with the North Carolina State Treasurer's Office. I'm really less worried about that with you all because you really have a very strong fund balance. So I think you've got some protection there. You have ended the year in strong financial condition, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Spencer?
No?
No, it looks to me like a couple of good things have happened from management standpoint. They did a better job investing for us, and it's reasonably safe from what I gather. My
The
understanding.
investments are very safe that they're in. You're pretty much invested in the North Carolina Cash Management Trust, which is a very safe investment.
All right, we want to hear that. So between that and good management of resources, we're in very good shape. I don't have any questions. I'm just happy. Thank you.
I think we're all happy. Thank you.
If you're happy, we're happy.
If y'all are happy, I'm happy. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
Also, thanks to Liliana and Andy for their help, obviously, during the audit process.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I remember when we first got Andy and Liliana, you were very helpful with them at a time that they needed help. So, and they needed help because I would have been out of it. Thank you very much. All right, next we have public comment. Lynn?
No one has signed up.
Anyone wish to speak at public comment? Let the record show no one came forward. Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda as promulgated?
Motion to approve the consent agenda, Mr. Mayor.
Second?
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. Okay, we didn't remove anything. Next, we have a public hearing. It's a text amendment thing. Does this have to be sworn? If anybody, this is not sworn. Okay, so first we need to get into public hearing. A motion to go into public hearing for this text amendment on several parts of our text. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So for this text amendment tonight, or these, you mentioned several text amendments. Recently, the state legislation passed some requirements that, ordinances that stated that localities, towns, and counties cannot regulate building design elements on 1- and 2-family homes. Building design elements specifically includes the style or material of roof structures, among some other design elements. All of our zoning ordinance or district regulations that have 1- and 2-family homes right now currently have a minimum of the 3-to-2 roof pitch. You can see this one third from the left in the top row. So that question came up to me a couple of months ago, whether that was enforceable or not with the new NCGS 168-381. After talking with the town attorney, we were advised that it was not enforceable. We needed to strike that language from all the district regulations. I will point out that it only relates to 1- and 2-family homes. So if the town wanted to, you could continue to require the 3x12 pitch on multifamily structures. The planning board's motion opted to just do away with it altogether, but that's for council to decide. So last month, I was asked whether the elimination of the minimum roof pitch would allow for additional living space, since a sloped roof could be eliminated in favor of a flat top roof. I guess the short answer is maybe. It depends. In some scenarios, it could be possible, depending on how much space exists between the regulatory flood protection elevation, which is base flood elevation plus the 1-foot freeboard, and then the 35-foot height maximum from average original grade that's dictated by the zoning ordinance. So just for an example in the staff report, a 35-foot tall 2-story house with a steeper roof, say one of the 12-to-12 pitches, they could opt to do away with that, put a flat top roof and have enough space so they could get an extra floor of living space. On the other hand, if the 35-foot tall house has the minimum 3-to-2 slope, they wouldn't really gain enough height by going flat top to get the minimum 7-foot ceiling. And then the same considerations would apply to multifamily dwellings. It would depend on how much space they have between the RFPE and the maximum height. However, I'll note that no additional dwelling units would be gained in the multifamily dwellings because that's regulated by our density maximums, which are 4 dwellings per acre in the BR2, 3, and VR3, and 10 dwellings per acre in the BC1 and 2 with the conditional use permits. With that, I'll open it up to any questions if there are any.
Council, got any questions? The only real consideration I think we don't have a choice on the residential, would be whether or not you'd want to extend this to multifamily. And if you don't have any questions, we'll go back into regular session. But once we go there, we can't ask any more questions.
I guess I'm hoping it's not a stupid question, but what would be the benefit of not having that regulation on multifamily?
I don't know if there would necessarily be any specific benefits or drawbacks. I guess it's just what the preference of the town would be.
As far as aesthetically or?
Right. Like I say, depending on the space between the RFP and the height maximum, somebody might be able to get an extra floor of living space and get a more heated living space, bigger dwelling sizes, but it wouldn't allow for increased dwelling units based on the density requirements. So it's allowing more square footage, but not necessarily any new units.
Might be like considered a loft, but not a bedroom or storage or utility heat pump.
Well, it could even be living space, like bedroom, living space or anything. It couldn't be a separate dwelling unit. Because the bedrooms would be all dictated by the septic permit, how many.
And it can't be more than 6 anyway, in a residential, but in a multifamily.
Don't think that's necessarily the case. We've seen some septic permits come through for like 8 occupant, 4 bedroom, 8 occupant. And we don't have any, we can't regulate number of bedrooms. So that's kind of all dictated by the health department.
I don't suppose you dug back to find out why a 3-2 was required in the first place?
I dug back, but I guess I couldn't dig
No
back far
reason?
enough.
I mean, it must have had to do with aesthetics, that's the
Yeah.
only thing I can think.
I'll note when we talked about it with the planning board, John Richardson had some concerns with, the engineering of it, saying if you go opt for a flat top roof on a 2 or 3 story house, it's gonna have to be engineered pretty well, because the wind, like uplift from the wind could take roots. That might have been part of the consideration of it, but I couldn't find any details.
What I think was, this whole area started with flat tops, and it came out of de rigueur, I guess, and they decided to put pitches on it. All right, council, what do you want to do? Does anybody have a preference here? We need a motion. Oh, wait, I need to go out of it. Go back into regular. Okay. I motion we go back into regular session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, now we're ready. Tina? Your last act.
I propose text amendment to be sought retaining the minimum roof pitch in multifamily dwellings. The following motion can be used. I move to adopt the proposed text amendment as recommended by the planning board, eliminating the current minimum roof pitch requirement for 1, 2-family dwellings in subsections 4294B2, 42247D5, 42273D5. Additionally, subsection 42248D5, 42249D5, 42274D5, and 4275D5 are to be amended to eliminate the minimum roof pitch requirement in 1 and 2-family homes and retaining the minimum roof pitch requirement for multifamily dwellings as noted in the staff report. Town council finds that the proposed text amendment is consistent with the adopted CAMA land use plan and finds that these amendments are in the public interest.
Does that have a
I'll
second?
second it.
Any further discussion?
Yes.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right, thank you. I agree with you, Tina. We all
Yes.
do.
I talked to a couple people and they said it was a matter of drainage too.
Old business.
Less than-
Okay. All right, basically, we tabled this particular one. It has to do with beach equipment being left out and excessive and unsafe digging or piling of sand. We all know digging holes is dangerous, both for people traveling and people doing the digging. So, did we get any feedback at all? No? Nobody had any complaints or comments? Nothing? All right. Council, do I hear a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve an ordinance amending the town code for the town of Kitty Hawk for section 628 regarding beach equipment as proposed here this evening, along with 629.
All right, Does it have a second?
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor?
I have one question.
Okay.
When we're talking about the, when they say the altering the shape of the dune, that's not going to be like if a guy's digging and has to move some dirt and then scraping it back or something like that?
No, not depending on which side of the dune it's on. I mean, if it's public trust, then no. I mean, you couldn't
Okay.
alter the shape of that dune. That's correct. Did I answer the question?
Yeah. Okay, I'm good.
I think most of us are thinking about people digging with shovels and sand buckets and stuff and getting a little excessive with it for whatever reason. You
But I
probably-
just wanted to make sure that, that a guy digging out for a set of steps, it's definitely going to kind of change a little bit of shape of the dune that is blew up around.
Well, actually, it has the right to do that simply because it's an encroachment of blown
Yeah,
sand
He
or
owns the,
something.
right.
Yeah, so he has a
And
right
if
to
he
do
throws
that.
it over on that dune beside his house, I mean, he's not altering the shape of that dune.
No.
Okay, that's what.
In fact, he's required to do something like
Okay,
that.
just
He can't,
making sure that,
He can't truck it off, that's for sure.
yeah, okay.
All right, so we had a motion and a second and discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. All right. Next, we have new business, and it's, Andy's wanting to establish a capital reserve budget for the unrestricted general fund balance to fund 20% of a proposed sidewalk on US 158 from Cypress Knee to G-Jack Street. And this is something that is part of what NC DOT calls the TIP. And it got on the tip. We still don't know how it got there, but it's good that it's there.
There.
And it's measuring high on the tip.
It's doing good.
And all of northeastern North Carolina is hollering, and we're still there. So how this happened, I don't know. The only other question I have for you before I ask for a motion is, does this 20%, is that our total obligation as we?
We're required for the pedestrian side and bike paths to contribute 20% of the project costs.
Okay.
Probably end up being more than that 5 years from now, I would imagine, but maybe not.
Well, but it's a figure that
Depending on
shows
the
we're
bids,
serious about it.
it's a rough estimate, yep.
Okay, all right.
And we
so-
have to commit a letter every year anyways, saying that we'll commit once the project comes to fruition, but this way, we'll set these monies aside and
Right.
they'll be there until either the project ever gets tabled or sent back or kicked off the plan, then we'll just
Pull it back.
free up the
But
money.
right now, we have it, and that would be a welcome addition. All right, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to establish a $254,000 capital reserve for the proposed sidewalk on US 158 from Cypress Knee Trail to G-Jack Street.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? There are none. Okay, town manager?
Veterans Day trash collection schedule, trash will be picked up on November 12th, which will be a Tuesday, instead of the regular scheduled service on Monday, and then the November 14th on Thursday. Town will also be doing another round of flu shots. That was a pretty successful turnout that we had several weeks ago. They actually ran a flu shot, so they're going to be coming back on Thursday, December 5th, from 2:30 to 5:30 here at Town Hall. It's for anybody 18 and over, and it's free for everyone that shows up, even if they don't have health insurance. That is all that I have this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, town attorney?
That's from me, Mayor.
Okay. Tina, you want to start us off on town council?
I will. For those of you who don't know, tonight is going to be my last meeting on the council. I'd like to thank my fellow council members for the honor and privilege of serving with you on this board over the past year. The citizens of Kitty Hawk are fortunate to have such an exemplary group of town employees and town leaders who do their very best to make this town successful and such a wonderful place to live and work. Thank you to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll miss you. Jeff?
Yeah, thank you, Tina, for stepping in for a year with us. We're gonna miss you, and have fun. And that's all I have.
I also would like to say it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
I'm going to miss the
Been my pleasure.
camaraderie of another woman on the council, but we'll still be around.
Oh, yes.
But thank you very much. It has made a difference.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. Knowing you for a good while, thank you for your services and your friendship, what you've done for the town of Kitty Hawk. I really mean that, too. Tomorrow's election day, get out and vote. That's all I have.
Yeah, and even though they're unopposed, the numbers do make them feel better, so, and somebody could come in and write something in and really surprise all of us, so don't let that happen. All right, I don't really have anything to add. I think I've talked enough. I think I'll stop. Public comment. Anybody? Let the record show no one came forward. I motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.